Next, I want you thinking about your parents. Really study them. I want you looking at their face shape. Does mom have a round face? Dad have a square face? Just kind of go through marking. First, look at one parent and mark all the traits that they have, and then go through with the second parent. From there is how we're going to pull up the genotypes and phenotypes. So when you're done, your sheet's going to look like this. You're going to divide it into 4 columns, and you're going to have your traits, parent 1, parent 2, and for now, just focus on parent 1 and parent 2 columns. We'll get into genotypes and phenotypes in a sec. But you're going through marking each one as so. So just go through marking face shape, chin prominence, chin shape, cleft chin, skin color. You're going to notice quite a few different things. A round face shape is dominant, where a square face shape is actually recessive. Chin, a very prominent chin is dominant. Let's see the shape of the chin. If it's like a rounded chin, that's dominant versus a square chin. Cleft chin is, if that's present, that's dominant versus when it's not present, is a recessive gene. Hair texture, widow's peak, eyebrow color, eyebrow thickness, eyebrow placement. Hair texture, curly is a dominant gene. Wavy is in the middle, it's like a carrier, and then straight is actually a recessive trait. Widow's peak, if you have a widow's peak, that's dominant versus no widow peak is recessive. Eyebrows, looking at the color of the eyebrows, a lot of people have very dark eyebrows. That's actually a dominant trait. Mediums in the middle, and then light eyebrows is recessive. Thickness, bushy eyebrows is actually dominant versus fine is recessive. Then the placement of the eyebrows, ones that aren't connected is dominant versus ones that are connected is recessive. So that's a good thing. Eye color, eye distance apart, eye size, eye shape, eye slantedness, eyelashes. Eye color, darker eyes are more dominant. So also dealing with eyes distance apart, those that are kind of close together is more of a dominant trait versus medium distance apart is a medium trait. And then eyes that are far apart, that's actually a recessive trait. Eye size, large eyes are dominant, medium is in the middle, and then small eyes are a recessive trait. Eye shape, almond shaped eyes, that's a dominant trait versus round eyes is a recessive trait. Eye slantedness, if it's kind of horizontal, that's actually dominant versus like an upward slant, that is a recessive trait. Lashes, large eyelashes, those are a dominant trait. Yay. And short eyelashes is a recessive trait. Mouth size, lip thickness, dimples, nose size, nose shape, nostril shape, mouth size. So if you have like a long mouth, that is a dominant trait. Average is in the middle, and then short mouth size is a recessive trait. Lip thickness, if your lips are kind of thick, that's actually a dominant trait versus thin lips is recessive. Dimples, if your dimples are present, that's a dominant trait versus an absence of dimples, that's recessive. Nose size, a bigger nose is dominant. Shape, if it's more of like a rounded nose, that's dominant, and more of a pointy nose is recessive. Nostril shape, if your nostrils are kind of rounded, that is a dominant trait. Earlobe attachment, Darwin's ear points, ear pits, hairy ears, cheek freckles, or forehead freckles. Those are the traits we're marking for parent 1, and then marking those genes for parent 2. Earlobes, let's see. People have free earlobes and attached earlobes. So, for example, my ear is what they call free or loped. Your teacher might have taught you that it's called loped ears. We see how it kind of dangles. If you don't have those that dangle where it's attached, that's called attached earlobe. So the free ones are dominant genes, and then the attached ones are recessive gene. Next, ear points, called Darwin's ear points. That's the top tip of your ear. Some people's is kind of pointy at the top tip. So if there's like a point present, that's dominant versus no point present, that is recessive. And then there's also something called ear pits, which looks kind of like a dimple right outside of your ear area. If you have that ear pit present, that's a dominant trait, versus no pit is a recessive trait. And then some people have hairy ears. So if you don't have any hair on your ear, that's a dominant trait. And if you have kind of like downy hair on your ear, that's a recessive trait. Lastly, freckles. If you have freckles on your cheek, that's actually a dominant trait. And if you have no freckles, that's recessive. And then some people have freckles on the forehead. That's actually a dominant trait. And then no freckles is recessive. Now that you have marked the traits of your parents, and also from part 1 marked the traits that you exhibit, we now know your genotype and phenotypes. Your genotypes are your traits that you carry on from your parents, and your phenotypes are your traits that you display. A good example of genotypes could be 2 parents with brown eyes and then they have a child with blue eyes. The 2 parents that had brown eyes were carriers of blue eyes in their genotype, so that's how their child could have blue eyes as their phenotype. My last question for you: are dominant traits more common than recessive ones? Feel free to pause this video as you're thinking of your answer. Not always. In certain areas of the world, recessive traits are more common. And the best example I can give you is, remember when I showed you guys the big second toe? That's a dominant trait to most of the world, but here in America, a lot of us actually have a longer big toe, or our second toe is the same length as our big toe. So in America, we carry the recessive trait and it's more common. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for Our Place in Space. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell. See you next time.